1 year since the explosion at the Deepwater Horizon oil rig set off a massive oil spill from BP that rocked the Gulf of Mexico. Following a 10-month freeze on deepwater drilling, offshore oil production is expected to be down 13% compared to last year. Meantime, oil prices surging, and the president keeps pushing more clean energy initiatives. Does this make any financial sense? Robert Bryce is the author of Power Hungry, The Myths of Green Energy and the Real Fuels of the Future. He joins me now from Austin, Texas. Robert, is this a situation that we're going to be facing for years to come, where the White House, at least in the meantime, is fighting more drilling in the Gulf of Mexico despite plentiful supplies of energy there?
Well, Dagan, I have to say, the president's positions on energy have been, in my view, inconsistent and really incoherent. If you remember, in January during the State of the Union, he called oil yesterday's energy and talked about cutting all tax incentives for the oil and gas sector. Then last month, and at his big energy speech at Georgetown University, he not only said that we need to accelerate drilling here in the U.S., but he said that he laid out some incentives, in fact, to do that very thing. The incoherence, I think, it comes from his position or his continuing claims that somehow biofuels, and in particular the corn ethanol scam, is going to make any difference in our overall oil needs. I'm for drilling here and drilling now.
Well, he praises Brazil for what they're doing in terms of energy production, but then we as a country slap, what is it, a 54-cent tariff per gallon on imported ethanol. So if you're going to encourage ethanol, then why do we have the tariff in the first place?
Well, again, this is an example of the incoherence of Obama's energy policies. This idea that Brazil is such a great example of energy production. Well, what are the Brazilians doing? They are accelerating their production of oil and gas offshore. They are leading the world in offshore, deep water offshore drilling technology. And their investments in ethanol overall compared to their investments in offshore oil and gas are tiny. And yet there's this discussion that ethanol is somehow going to be the solution. It is not. Just quickly, Dagan, I've done these numbers just recently on the corn ethanol scam, and the EPA under Obama has been talking about how we need to accelerate this. Right now, the U.S. is burning 40% of its corn crop. That's 15% of global corn. It's 5% of all global grain is being used by the corn ethanol scammers to produce the energy equivalent of 0.6% of global oil needs. Well, this is madness.
Well, there's so much focus on getting the debt down and reducing our deficit spending. If you look at the ethanol tax credit, the volumetric ethanol tax credit that goes to the refiners, it costs about $5 billion a year, and that's just part of the subsidy that we give to ethanol consumption. And I don't wonder, will there be more of a move to reduce these kinds of subsidies in the coming years because of the cost of them?
Well, I think that's a key question, Dagan, and it's not just going to be corn ethanol, it's going to be all renewables. But I think, and I understand the numbers you just put out, but if you look at the Congressional Budget Office estimates on what the actual tax subsidies are for the ethanol scam, the total cost to taxpayers is on the order of $16 billion. Well, even if you look at Obama's budget and you eliminate all of the tax preferences for oil and gas, it only amounts to about $4.4 billion, even though we get about over 100 times more energy from oil and gas as we do from the corn ethanol scammers. So we need some fiscal coherence in energy policy, but unfortunately we haven't seen any coherence when it comes to Obama and his energy policies.
Robert, it was great to see you. Thank you for being here. Robert Bryce, be well.